Elected officials are accountable to the people who voted them into office, and it is part of their duty to report back to the constituency on the work that they are doing. Recently, the Ward 22 councillor for Bulawayo, Councillor Mmeli Moyo, organized a feedback meeting to report back to the constituency on the work that he is doing as their representative in council. The feedback meeting was graced by the Bulawayo Mayor, Councillor David Coltart, who took the opportunity to deliver a State of the City address on what the council is doing to improve service delivery in the city. Welcome to Fix My City on Asake Online. My name is Leslie Moyo. In this edition of the program, we give you highlights of that feedback meeting to find out what the councillor for Ward 22 is doing to improve service delivery in the ward, as well as efforts that are being done by the council to improve service delivery in Bulawayo.
Ngiyazehlisa ngiyalamukela ngisithi happy new year. Sibonge njalo umlimi inkosi yethu esigcine kwaze kwafika lesi sikhathi. I think I won't waste much of your time ngoba ke umkhokheli kade simnxusile uyagijima. Mbona abantu bebemangela ukuthi kanti namhla kuyenzakalani. Ngizatshela lesi sikhathi kumhlonitshwa uSenator David Coltart, Mayor of the City of Bulawayo, with an intention yokuthi ke ezama ukusinika a state of the province uBulawayo address in terms of indaba zamanzi ahluphayo, in terms of indaba zesuwa esezihluphile, in terms of indaba zama vendor, in terms of indaba billing. So those are the four critical issues uMayor azasikhuluma. Then kuzatholakala ke ithuba elokuthi ke impuzo related to khonokho okuyabe kukhulunywe nguMayor sizavula maybe 10 minutes or less. So bengicela simnikeze ithuba exazulule ke udaba asiphathelwe njengowa 22. Then thina njengomphakathi zasala sesibamba sesiya phambili. So mvumelani isiphakame siphakame sinanzelele sihloniphe si invite uMayor wethu uSenator David Coltart to take the podium and address Ward 22. Siyabonga.
Salibonani. Linjani. Happy New Year to you all. Thank you, Councillor Moyo, for those introductory remarks. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, is it a mistress of ceremonies? At the outset, I want to apologize that I'm just coming for such a short time. I have other commitments today, but I wanted to make a special effort to come here because primarily of Councillor Moyo. I want to say that at the outset. I want to say it for two reasons. Firstly, I respect the courage that he has shown this past year when he was detained illegally and unjustly. And I was impressed by the way he conducted himself when he was detained. As you know, I've been a lawyer in the city for 42 years, and I've represented everyone from Joshua Nkomo to Sydney Malunga, a long line of heroes. And I want to say that this is the new generation of heroes sitting here, people who can do what is right and do it with courage and honor and dignity. And I wanted to make special time to come here today because I respect what he stands for. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing, before I speak about the city, we need to understand why our nation is in crisis? Why is it our nation, with all its assets, with all our gold, with all our lithium, with all our iron ore, with all our coal, with Victoria Falls, with the mountains, with all our wonderful land, with our hardworking, intelligent people, why is it that we are still so poor? Why? And it comes down to leadership. We have the coach of this young football team here, and well done, Makoro Koto Amhlopia, you've done well. But we have to ask, why is it that this group of youngsters can do well and yet another group of youngsters cannot? It comes down to leadership. If we have good leadership, then we have success on the football field and in a nation. And that's the second reason I'm here today with Councillor Moyo. Because I can see in Councillor Moyo good leadership. And what is the most important thing of good leadership, Mum? It is genuine sacrifice. It is not coming to a meeting like this in fancy clothes and a big Toyota VX outside. That's not leadership. The best quality of leadership is sacrifice. People who are genuine, servant-hearted leaders. That is what will transform our nation, and we have to look for the next generation of leaders who understand that, who are not in their position because of what they can get out of that position. They are in that position for what they can give. And I see that in Councillor Moyo. And I hope that he continues this path. And that's why I've made a special effort to come here today. I'm busy. But I wanted to come to honor him. Let me talk about the city. It is obvious to you that we are in trouble. I know that most of you are getting water, if you're lucky, 1 day a week. Our sewage is not working. Just driving here, I saw open sewage. Our roads are chaotic. People are still unemployed. People are depressed. And in the city council, it's no different. When I came in, I knew there would be problems. But I've been shocked by the depth and the breadth of the problems. Everywhere you look in the city council, there are problems. There have been 4 decades of neglect. I don't know when this hall was built. In the 1980s? This hall was built when the council was working properly. We're not building halls like this now. There are problems everywhere. Now, I'm not here today to depress you. I'm stating what you know already yourself. What I want to speak to you today about, what are our plans? What are people like Councillor Moyo and me and others doing to try and address the problem? We can't deal with everything. The problems are so big that we have to choose what are the most important things that we need to sort out. So number 1 for me is water. We have to sort out water. We have a major problem with our dams. With all the rain that we have had these last few months, our dams yesterday were still sitting at 28%. 28%. With all this rain that has come, our dams the last 2 weeks have only gone up by 4%. Why? To keep my mind straight, I ride my bicycle to keep fit. Last Saturday, I rode south. I rode almost to the Umzingwane to go and see for myself what's happening. I was shocked last Saturday. I rode 40 kilometers. I didn't see one stream flowing. Not one after all that rain. Why? Illegal gold panners. They have dug up our rivers. It is a huge problem. So we've got to deal with that. But our dams are not sufficient. I met, some of you may remember him, George Mlilo. Do you remember George Mlilo? The older people, the young people won't remember. He was the city engineer in the 1990s. I met him in November. And he said to me, when I was an engineer in the early 1990s, we said that we should build Glass Block Dam. It was the dam that they wanted to build in 1990. It's never been built. That is what we are focused on. We are trying to build Glass Block Dam. In early December, I went to Morocco to the African Development Bank meeting, and we had a very constructive meeting to try and raise the $99 million that we need to build Glass Block Dam. We are very close to signing the agreements that we need to build Glass Block Dam and to build the 32-kilometer pipeline from Glass Block to Neme pump station. When we do that, it is going to change the water situation. Not overnight. It's going to take 2 years to build. 2 years. So we all need to be patient. But we have a plan. We are working. We know what should have been done in the 1990s. We are working hard to do that. Gwashangani is fine, but Gwashangani is long-term. It's 257 kilometers from Bulawayo. To build that pipeline is a lot of money. It costs a very small amount to build Glass Block Dam and its pipeline. So that is what we're working very closely as well with the government who promised us money to upgrade the system that we've got as well. I don't have time to go into the detail this afternoon. But what I'm saying to you is that we understand the water crisis that you're all facing, the water shedding. I can't stand here this afternoon and look any of you in the eye and say we can sort it out tomorrow or next week or next month. It's not going to happen. I haven't come here to tell lies. We have a major problem with our water. We have a water crisis. But what I want to encourage you with is that we have a plan. We are working hard. We are working with international institutions to get Glass Block Dam built, to rehabilitate the pipelines so that we address it. But it is going to take at least 2 years. So we need your patience. If it rains, if it continues to rain this season, then our existing dams will improve, obviously. But we can't rely on that. We can't, as a city, say, oh, it's rained, so we don't have to build Glass Block Dam. That is simply nonsense. We have to plan for the future. And what the last few years have shown us is that our existing dams are not sufficient for our city. So the number one priority is water. And you'll hear Councillor Moyo will confirm. I talk water, 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 water. Every meeting, I talk about water. I'm focused on that. Number two is sanitation. The sewage. I had a report just in Nketa 8 yesterday, a house with sewage everywhere. Terrible, terrible for a family. Terrible exposure to cholera. And we've got a major problem with sewage. We have 8 sewage plants, none of them are working properly in the city. And that is our focus, to try and get those sewage plants working properly. But it is a big problem. But we are focused on trying to work with private companies and others to get those working. I appeal to all of you, though, to help us with that, because some of the sewage blockages are caused by our own negligence. Where we throw litter, where we throw plastic bottles, they get into our systems, they block the pipeways, and when you get those blockages, that affects the sewage system as well, and you get the sewage coming out. So please, particularly young people, I'm speaking to these young lads here, we have to change our culture. We can't be littering as we do. Your homes are not littered, so why are our streets littered? And we need every person to work with us so that we clean up the city. Please, I beg you. It starts with one person. It starts with the gogos. No, it does, with the gogos. You teach your children, your grandchildren, no littering. Don't put it just in the streets. We need to change that, and working together we can change the city. Finally, number 3 priority. So many people are unemployed. We as a council can't provide jobs. What we have to do is to see what we can do to help people who are unemployed. And the main focus has to be on informal vendors. We are just about in the council to agree on a new policy for informal vendors. We are, as you know, working on Egodini. It's going far too slow, but we want further markets like Egodini, not just at Egodini, but other places in the city. And we want to get even these markets better. If you look at these markets here, what is the problem with that market? With those black plastic roofs. When it gets hot, it's too hot to operate. You can't keep food properly. When it rains, your food gets wet and clothes get wet. We need markets where there is a complete roof over, right? Right over the market. We need solar lighting on the markets, and solar power, and Wi-Fi. There's no reason with Starlink now why each market can't have solar and Wi-Fi for those, so that I met this young man here, this gentleman in the green t-shirt here, sir. He is an expert in repairing cell phones. People like this young man need to have access to reliable power, need to have access to Wi-Fi. Am I not correct? If we change these markets, then suddenly people like this young man can improve their businesses. And that applies to so many people. So this is our 3rd priority. We want to create markets right across the city, not just at Egodini, but ideally every single high density should have a decent market, so that people in the informal sector have a good place to work and their customers have a nice place to shop. Not like this. Although these are hard-working people, that needs to be completely covered, and that is what we are working on. 3 around the city, and then many more in places like in Kulumani, and even for what I term the solo vendors. Individual vendors must have a proper little place that they can and we need to reach agreement with the council and the vendors. You can operate at this place, you pay your license, but you get protection from the city council. So that is our vision. That is where we want to take us. There are many other issues that I can speak to you about this afternoon, about roads, about clinics, about the way we run the city. But those are the three main issues: water, sanitation, informal vendors. If over the next 4 years we do that, we're going to change the city. Because the city with proper water that is clean, that has orderly informal vendors, becomes an attractive place for investors. When we get investors to come in, then we start to really build the city. But we can't do that with so much chaos in the city. I'm sorry once again that it is so short to speak to you today. But as I say, I wanted to come and honor Councillor Moyo, and I wanted to tell you that we're not being lazy. We are working hard. I've never worked this hard in my life before. But we need your support. We need you to support your councillor so that we can continue this work. Siyabonga, but I will open up for some questions.
We understand we receive water maybe once a week, maybe for 2 days, which means we receive water 8 days a month. But our bills are too high for 8 days. Can you solve that? We can't keep on paying bills, yet we don't use water. What's the way forward on bills? Thank you, sir.
Let me answer that. So, on water there, the bulk of your bill should be for water you've actually used.
Yes.
So if the bill is above what you've used, I'm going to put a question back to you. Have you gone to say this is not correct?
We always go to Bulawayo.
And what do they say?
They give us some explanations which we don't even understand. Because maybe 3 years back we used to pay $20 a month. But now we receive bills, $70, $60.
What I want you to do, I want everyone here.
Yes.
I'm obviously responsible for 800,000 residents.
Yes.
I can't do everyone's.
Yes.
That's why your council is so important. You need to get that information together. You're a young lady. You can act as a magnet. Get those bills in, get them to the councillor so that we can do an audit and see what is going on.
My main question is, you have emphasized what you are trying to do to rectify the water situation. But as we live here, I'm not sure what I'm going to tell those who are not here, what City Council is doing to rectify that. Yes, you have been to African Development Bank, you have talked about Glasgow, which will take 2 years. But what are our immediate solutions? This is what we want to hear. Thank you.
So what you raise is very important, but I need to be frank with you and frank with everyone. I cannot come here today and say that I have a short-term solution. It would be dishonest of me. We face a major crisis, and if you follow me on social media, you will see that I've been saying this for a year. Over a year, ever since I came into office and I got the facts and I understood what was going on. We have the build-up of a variety of factors. First of all, we had drought, we had El Nino, and no rain last season. So our dam levels dropped. Secondly, we had what I spoke about, gold panners, right? Thirdly, we have the growth of the city, buildings being built everywhere with no new dams. It's obvious. A population growth, more buildings, but no new dams, no new sources of water, right? And then finally, fourthly, we have not invested in our water infrastructure for 4 decades. All of you know You have not seen new pipes being laid, right? Throughout the city. And all of this has come together. Now, there is no immediate solution. I know you don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. There is no overnight solution to the situation. If we have good rains and our dams fill, that is going to help us a great deal, because then we've got the raw water. But it's still not going to help the dilapidated piping system. It is still, and one thing I haven't mentioned, Chair, is ZESA. It's a huge factor. You know, our pumps down at Nlema, when you go to, if you ever go to Nlema, we have huge pumps there. Now, they're not like your little borehole pump that you can just turn on and off. They have sequences to turn them on, to turn them off. And we've been pleading with ZESA to say, before you load shed, tell us so that we can switch our pumps off. We just get switched off. And it's damaged some of our pumps. So even when we've got water, we've still got the ZESA problem. How are we trying to deal with it? We are trying to get solar plants down at Nlema so that we can rely on solar power independently of ZESA to run those pumps. But that's not done overnight, all right? So what I'm saying to you, sir, is that, and it's not what you want to hear. I could come and say, oh, don't worry, we'll work with our engineers. Anyone who tells you that is lying to you. And then we've got an additional problem. Those of you who are living in high-lying areas have a much worse problem. And the reason for that is when we pump, after we've pumped from Criterion, gravity takes over. So if you're in a low-lying area, the water goes down to that. But if you have a house in a high-lying area, you don't get pressure. And the only way we can restore that pressure is by having water in the system the whole time. It's simple physics. So it's a frustrating topic for me to speak to, because I can't look you in the eye, sir, and say, don't worry, it's going to get sorted out. You need to hear me very clearly. If we have rain, it will improve situations, but it won't resolve it completely, because it won't resolve ZESA, and it won't resolve the broken pipes in our system. That is going to take hundreds of millions of dollars. But what we're now working towards is a more efficient system. And I want to say this. There's been a lot of talk about setting up a water authority, and it's been quite controversial because people think that we want to privatize our water. I want to say very clearly in this meeting, we do not want to privatize water, right? We do not want to privatize water, but it is very important that we ring fence our water assets so that when money is paid for water, we keep that money to rehabilitate the pipelines and the dams and the pump stations. We need to make the way we run water more efficient. But all of this is going to take time. All I'm saying to you today is that I and the rest of the councillors are deeply aware of the nature of the problems. And we have a plan to address those problems, but it is going to take years to resolve them. Thank you. Sir, let me speak to Nyamandlovu. So this is a very important, the reason, sir, I'm following up on this. So we have, in the last few months, got a company up from Botswana that has been involved in the deep boreholes in Botswana. Just to explain to you, when Nyamandlovu was developed in the 1990s, They dug the boreholes to a depth of 120 meters. And they have standard size diameter of boreholes. And that Nyamandlovu aquifer, its design capacity is for 20 megaliters per day. This Botswana company has come up. They have the ability to dig 2 kilometers down, and they can dig boreholes with almost a meter diameter. And those boreholes, they were explaining to us at places like Zhuaning, you know, the diamond mine. They've got one borehole there. One borehole can generate 225,000 liters per hour. One borehole. So one of the things that we are looking at now is, do we do test holes for Nyamandlovu to see whether we can get similar capacity? But part of the problem that we face, sir, is that the city council doesn't own Nyamandlovu. It's owned by Zinwe. None of the boreholes there are Bulawayo Council property. And so we have to work very closely with government. Also, to do one test hole is $350,000 US. So it's not small money. Our short-term plan, understand me, first of all, I'm on my knees praying for rain. That might sound terrible to some people, but that's the reality. I'm praying that we have rain and that our dams fill up, because that is the best short-term solution. If God doesn't answer our prayers, our plan B is to activate Nyamandlovu, to try and do test holes to see whether we can do it. Turning to Hope Fountain, we have seen the geological surveys. Nyamandlovu is based on Kalahari sand. Kalahari sand is like a sponge. Now, if you look at the geological formation for Hope Fountain, there is Kalahari sand south of the city near Hope Fountain, but it's very small. So that the geological engineers have said to us, we should focus more on Nyamandlovu, because whilst we might get water out of Hope Fountain, because of the small size of the Kalahari sands there, they're not convinced that we'll get adequate water. But we haven't written it off. So we are looking at all of these. You know, in a short meeting like this, I can't speak to everything. But I'm glad that you raised that point. Thank you.
Ask one question about the sewage. Human waste is the most waste a human can have. So, now with a sewage, I will study again. And I don't know what's the report on it. But this year, right. Into a funny ends today. I'm very happy, of course. Since before Christmas, the sewage will be blocked. We had visitors. Our is not getting to it. But only today, service will cancel. And within 5 minutes, done. I think over that. Why? Can't we subsidize the private companies? Can't back on a plumber, our young savings, about savings, who can do better? After all, now we pay Ismail Zakon. Ismail Zakon is in a service. Month and period when a daily of the car. Yes. And they in this issue. Owamanzi kungono yakwazi esporani. Owamanzi kungono uyalinda wesu. Not to do kind of the car. Please, on that, please.
Okay, let me answer you.
Thank you, Bob.
The problems regarding our sewers are deep-seated. We have 8 sewage plants in the city. When we took over, I was told, and it's still the situation, they are operating at less than 20% capacity. Less than 20%. In some parts of the city, we are pumping raw sewage into the Umguza River. It's a completely unacceptable situation. It has been made worse by the amount of rubbish that is in the system. It is made even further worse by the water shedding. Because when you don't get water in your system, you don't flush everything. So when you do get water in the system, everything has hardened, right? And then you get water in the system and there's a blockage. Whereas when you've got lots of water in the system, it flows. Those are the problems that we face. So how are we trying to tackle it? Number one, we are working with companies. We're working now on Hazelby 1, 2, and 3. It's not this part of the city, it's the other part of the city to get a private company to come in and rehabilitate it. We're working with a South African company, Acumen, to try to bring in new technology for those sewage plants. Right, that's number one. In answer to your one question, we have contracted private plumbers. We've contracted, I think I'm correct in saying, 5 companies, and they have been working at places in the city to unblock. I'm not sure whether any have been here. Once again, I come back to this lady here. You need to work with your councillor where there are particularly bad areas so that we can try to get those private companies in to help. But then finally, I come to the point I made. We all need to work together. Please take me seriously on rubbish. When I was driving in here, some of the lanes are full of rubbish. And when the rains come, it takes that rubbish, it goes into the system. And it makes it even worse. So you've got hardening of human waste, and then you've got plastic with it. And it becomes like a dam. And you know, we need to work collectively. Imagine if every person cleaned up outside their house. If every business cleaned up outside their house. If young people cleaned the drains, unblocked the drains outside your own house, things will change. So that you see the 3 things that the council has to get the sewage plants working again. Number 2, we need, I agree with you, private companies to help unblock in the interim. But number 3 is us all working together to make sure that we don't litter, we don't block, and we do what we can outside our own houses to unblock. I had a report from Inketa 8 just in the last 2 days. Terrible sewage, but part of the problem is that the drains by the house have not been cleared. So there's no place for the water to go. You can't look to the council. I'm sorry, you know, I'm not seeking re-election. I can say horrible things. You can't look to the council for everything. We need to have a spirit of self-reliance and self-help. If we do that, if we keep our neighborhoods clean, if we dig the ditches, it's going to make it easier to deal with this. But if we just say, oh, it's council's business, it's not going to happen as it should happen.
Namhlanje besihlangene lezakhamizi kowa 22 lama stakeholders wonke esigabeni esikawa 22 eNkulumane laseNketha. Silo baba umeya obaba owakobulawayo uSenator David Coltart, where we were giving the state of the ward address, specifically giving a report back of umnyaka oka 2024. Ngoba sithe singena ke esihlalweni njengocouncil we had promised izakhamizi ukuthi sizaba uncouncil othandekayo, othumekayo, othembekayo, othindekayo. So it is with that agenda where we proffer and deliver to them a transparent and accountable leadership. So besilapho ukuthi sizo account to the works that we did in 2024, the successes and the failures of 2024, we had mega projects over 22, number one being the public solar lighting, where success adopted over 22 solar lights in each and every street and each and every corner. We started that program on a high note. Unfortunately, as concerned, because of technical issues, has affected, but we managed to cover a quarter of the work, and we have an intention to carry forward that project and that idea to this year, 2025. Also, yet a plan and a program to make sure that izakhamizi adopt also buying solar panels ngoba izesa isihluphile lapha esigabeni and we are trying to make sure ukuthi siya minimize ke ukuganyulwa kwezihlahla etc abantu bezama ukudinga alternative sources of power ukuthi bepheke ezindlini. So we had agreed lezakhamizi ukuthi sesingena futhi ku-agenda of having solar panels ezindlini as an alternative source of power. So that's the project of 2025. We also we are reflecting upon the agenda of Ontanga or youth. As you know that the majority of the population here in Kulumane Goa 22 are the young people who have energy and different abilities and skills. Babe Kaluta wala youth centers acela ku-city council siphiwe i-youth centers aphiwa ke emhlabathi sikhanele this year we source for ama-donor and all those partners who can be able to assist so that we build a state-of-art youth center eka 22 so that eradicate ama-terms of drug abuse and crime ekade sidominate ke lapho ewadini. As you know that last year we recorded 4 murder cases of young people who were abusing drugs here ku 22. So we are trying to minimize so that we create a safe space for our young people here in Kulumane. Also, yet in Nigeria to make sure that we address the fundamental question of water crisis. Go 22. Ngoba siyakwazi ukuthi Bulawayo at large is facing a water crisis element, but siyakwazi ukuthi we gifted ngomhlabathi olamanzi phansi njengoba 22 enketha leNkulumane we have watered down. So we wanted to make sure that we source for alternative bowls and kiosks so that we assist and cover the gap of the shortage of water. And that's the project that we are also focusing on Goa 22 for the year 2025, whereby we are going to approach our donors in Zimbabwe and abroad so that they can assist building bowls, they can assist drilling lama water kiosks lapho sinanze futhi sifukumodernize ama bowls yona because silabogogo bethu abangasakwanisa ukukhotha amaqola asavumi. So we want to make sure that we modernize and put solars so that we keep amanzi ke empompini. And we also have a critical challenge of sewer. Abantu sebehlala kuma sewage badla lama sewage bageza lama sewage balala emaswedini which is a threat to our health, which is a threat to abantwana bethu esilabo esigabeni. So that's the agenda futhi esilayo esifuna ukubona ukuthi are there any alternative means whereby we can source for ama contractors, ama plumbers azancedisa esigabeni so that they can fix the question of sewer ke once and for all. So silama projects amaningi esiwakhandile for 2025 basically on the agenda of making sure that we transform and change the lives of the people who are 22. Sile sokusile supermarket isokusile supermarket bekulama issues amaningi ayenzakalayo ukuthengiselana lokuthenga kwezindawo ongekho emthethweni lokungayenelisi ukubhadala irent ku-city council lokunye nje kuqabala lokungcola nje. So sifuna ukuthi i-adoptwe ibe yi-modernized rank njengegodini ke. So that project also the paperwork is already on trail. Is izazama ukufakwa to the agenda of city of Bulawayo this coming year so that we can have a modernized sokusile that will address the fundamental anomalies akhonayo ke emphakathini. Also in management of transport section sinanze ukuthi nxa lingakhalela around ama-Honda Fit asegcwele every corner everywhere. So we are here to meet the stakeholders specifically on the transport section so that sibe le specific agreement esenza ngoba siyakwazi wonke umuntu udinga ukuphila eZimbabwe economic wise is not healthy, is disabled. So we are trying to make sure that we live a good situation enjalo abantu bethula ukuphila in those situations. And then on social amenities, yes, umnyango lo wa declare also futhi ukuthi kule starvation kule hunger we are trying also to make sure that we source ukudla okuzancisa ogogo labokhulu bethu ezindlini kwezethu labo baphathiseke. December last year we tried to assist a few of umphakathi wethu in terms of ukudla, but we are looking towards extending the number, trying to lobby 1 or 2 infrastructure ezasincedisa ukuthi lathi siphathise izakhamizi zethu in terms of food. So those are the plans that we have for 2024. But today we're happy with every stockholder was here. The people who are working in the public offices, civil servants, we have police soldiers, CIO, CIDs, everyone was here churches, they were here trying to come and understand where our ward came from, where it is now, and where we are going. And we had to promise Izakhamis that we are here to present an honest, transparent, and accountable leadership that is always for the people, with the people, and by the people in everything that we seek to achieve and deliver as a ward, as a people. So siyabonga kakhulu ngokuxhaswa ngama-stakeholders wonke esikhangele ukuthi 2025 uzaba ngumnyaka wempumelelo, umnyaka wenguquko, unyaka wotshintsho in each and every corner of Ward 22.
Have you ever attended a feedback meeting in your ward? If you have, tell us your experience. And if not, we'd also want to find out why you have not been going for these ward meetings. Do get in touch with us on our various social media platforms at Site ZW. Do also take time to follow us and find out more of the work that we are doing as the Center for Innovation and Technology. Let's meet again in the next edition of Fix My City. My name is Mmeli Moyo.